We are fastly approaching the time of year where award season is going to be handed out. Every year around January, there are the Grammy Awards, the People's Choice Awards, the Emmys, and of course, the grandfather of them all, the Oscars. At some time in our lives, we've all watched the Oscars. We've all watched the pre-show. It's appointment television. Whenever you watch these shows, you see real fans, real fanatics screaming and shouting and sitting down there for 3 hours just to watch people walk by. These stars stop for the occasional smile, the occasional wave, the occasional hello. And people at the side, on the fan section, just go crazy about just the fact that they looked at them. They normally stop at what looks like every microphone. They give an interview, they say hello, they tell you what they're wearing and how good they look and how good they are. And if you ever watch these pre-shows, you can hear the screams of the fans. I love you, I miss you, hey, just to get their attention. If an actor or an actress makes their way to that fan area, pandemonium. Reaching, screaming, shoving, just to get an autograph. Somebody trying to get a picture on their phone to update their Facebook page or their Twitter. Me and Halle Berry, me and Mr. Denzel Washington. Just to say that they were there, everybody could see that they made the pinnacle, they got there. So I would believe, Bishop, that if you had put on that marquee today, word given by Mr. Denzel Washington, there wouldn't be an absolute empty seat in this house. In fact, we probably would have to figure out how to stream it with Brother Williams here into the chapel, because there'll be people in there waiting just to see him, just to have an opportunity to hear what he would have to say. But what if you wanted to meet Mr. Denzel Washington? The hoops and the security, the venting that you would have to go through just to meet him, just to touch him, just to get to meet him. I can almost guarantee he'd probably come through the back door, and the only ones that would meet him, not even the praise team, would just probably be Bishop and his wife if she was here. Those two would just be the only ones that would have the opportunity to shake hands and have a picture taken. You wouldn't do it, but what would you do if you really needed to see him? Now, Mr. Denzel Washington did not choose to come by Covington Drive today. Imagine if he had chose to come by, like I said, it would be pandemonium. But at this point, I want you to keep that in your mind. Think of all the droves of people that would be in this building. In every seat, we'd find chairs to put him to see Mr. Denzel Washington. With that in mind, like I tell our youth group all the time, I have a literal mind. So when I read that story, I see the group of people that is following Jesus. I see this story and I see a flock of people almost as big as this room, just following Jesus wherever he goes, every step he takes. When I look at my text, that's the visual I have. I need you guys to picture that visual in your head. At this time in the story, Jesus had already cleansed lepers. He'd already healed the sick, cast out a demon or two. He'd even got winds and the storms to obey his command. So it's safe to say that he's made his way. At this point in the story, a lot of people know about Jesus and his works. They're probably saying things like, when Jesus is around, things happen. When that boy Jesus comes around with his friends, watch out. Something's going to happen. Just as if it were Denzel coming, the anticipation would be great, where they would be waiting, panting, desperate to see what was coming up next. If you picture this in your mind, I think you would help you see where I'm going when I finish. When I look at this story, I split it into three groups. Those three parts are the crowd, the desperate mindset, and the reaction. Let me start with the crowd. The crowd is easy for us to relate to. We're all in this sanctuary. Everybody's waiting and wanting to see me, see what I have to say. The crowd is like us. They're around Jesus. They follow him each and every step to Thomas. Everywhere he went, they were there. I'm sure if there was press releases and you could see in pictures, you'll see there goes Johnny behind James. There goes Johnny again behind Peter. It's the same crowd. They were like groupies. They had nothing else to do. They were just following Christ. We're too busy to just even say that. We'd say we have to go to work. I'll catch them on the Wednesday of next week's revival, but not this week. But at this point, these people, all they did, their life, what he fed them, they ate. If he didn't feed them, they were fine. They were just following Jesus, following the crowd. Everybody was just going. I could close my eyes and imagine the disciples as he came, because they're the closest to him. As he walked in, they took their security positions. Peter and John, you two at the top. You two close to me. You two behind me. Everybody was ready, protecting him. Protecting him, because they didn't want to lose their Savior. They knew that with a crowd this big, it was almost impossible to stop any danger from happening. So they were going to do their best. And if you really notice that, I could fast forward in the Bible, even when they came to get Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, Peter took out his sword and chopped his ear off. It wasn't time. He felt like it wasn't time for you to take my Savior. That's how the disciples' mentality was. I'm going to protect my Savior from anybody getting to him. So with that, you can understand. You can see it. I can see it in my head. It's very vivid how they protected him, how they watched him. Okay, it's time to go. If it was President Barack Obama, they'd have things in their ears, say, okay, he's moving left, he's moving right, he's taking a step, he has to go to the bathroom. What are we going to do? Just monitoring every step he did as disciples, because they did not want the crowd to get to him. As we look at this story, we can understand that. They were like spoiled kids, not prepared to allow their Jesus to get close to anyone else if it meant he would leave them. I'll get back to those disciples soon, because they really puzzle me. Now, when a mass of people had all walks of life, rich, young, poor, all of them rubbing shoulders, following Jesus. Everyone's just walking, trying to see what was going to happen next. This is where the story gets interesting to me. The crowd was in the right place at the right time, but they weren't prepared to do what they had to do to get what they needed. I'll say it again. The crowd was in the right place at the right time, with the right person there, but they weren't prepared to do what they needed to do to get done. That really makes you think, because no one else in that story that I know of, I'm not a theologian as you may be, but nobody else in that story may have got to him at that moment. They only tell us of two. They tell us of Jairus and the woman with the issue of blood. Nobody else was desperate enough to change their situation, to do whatever it took to get to Jesus. It only told us about Jairus and the woman with the issue of blood. When I think of that crowd, I try to wonder how many people in that crowd had issues. How many people in that crowd had other issues? She had an issue of blood. But what if I had an issue with my foot? What if I had an issue with what if I had an issue at home? What if I had an issue with my family? As Marcel, what if my kids were acting up? What if I didn't know what to do with my husband or my wife? What if I just lost my job? These are all issues that he could change, but nobody was prepared to be desperate enough to go get him, to do what he had to do. Listen, one thing I need to say, everybody in the crowd is not there for him. Everybody in this room is not here for God. So my question this morning to our members is, what happens to those people? Who are those people? If we all have issues, I have issues. I know our young people have issues. So if they have issues, I'm gonna make the strong assumption that everybody else has issues. So if we all have issues, right, Garrett? We all have issues. What are we gonna do to get it changed? What are you willing to do to get it changed? Just like the other members of the crowd, I look at the crowd and I break it down. There's professional onlookers in that crowd. There are people in that crowd who are just happy to be there. They may know him, they may know of him, but they're professional onlookers. They're fans, exactly. They're fans. Actually, they're Monday morning quarterbacks. They understand. They've been in church so well, they could tell you who sang, if they were on key, if the praise team practiced, if it was a new song. They could tell you if Bishop bought a new suit. They could tell you if I'm wearing a new tie. They could tell you everything that had nothing to do with why they were here, but they're there. They act as an obstacle. They act as an obstacle in your way just to get what you need to get done. They need a mentality change. They need to get desperate for him. These professionals can dissect the service. They know everything. Now, if there are some professionals in this building, and I know they are, I'm not calling any names, just keep looking straight ahead. But you need to get desperate. You need to forget about what I'm wearing, what I'm saying, what they sang, how they sang, who played, if it was too loud. Get desperate. Because when you're desperate, none of that stuff matters. because you're here to get what you need. As I said earlier before, not only in that crowd were there professional onlookers, because I think that happens everywhere. In that crowd, the disciples were there. The Bible clearly tells us about the 12. So we know that that's 3 sets on each side of him. He was covered at all angles. Everywhere he went, everywhere he turned, there was a disciple with him. He kept 3 close, so that means the rest of them had to cover the perimeter. So everywhere he went, those disciples were there protecting him. But it's almost like